What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vikings Brawl podcast. My name is Tyler Carmer, and I'm your host. And I've got with me Austin Winders and Byron Chamberlain. Welcome back, Byron. Our
Hey,
Twitters
glad to
are
be back.
Carmer Skull and Winders20. You can find the show at Vikings Brawl, and Byron's is BC_Chamberlain. Byron, it's good to have you back.
Man, it's good to be back and talking Vikings football.
What you been up to?
Oh man, I've been pretty busy last week, and today was a hectic day for me. I missed the combine. I got some high level updates from some guys that I wanted to watch and was interested in, but missed it today. I recorded. I'll go watch that, but I'm here, man, and let's talk some football.
So there's some people you are excited to see. Do you have a couple you can name that you're excited to see how they perform?
Well, my guy is, I definitely want to see how the wide receivers, because it's such a wide receiver rich class. Judy and Higgins and Jefferson from LSU, and a friend of mine, Monte Rager, his son out of TCU, is going to put up an incredible number running the 40. But my favorite guy in the draft is Albert O, the tight end from Missouri. And because I used to be a tight end from Missouri. But he's a talented kid, man, 6'5", 260, and he turned in the fifth fastest time for a tight end at the combine today. He ran a 4.49 official. So he's the number one tight end on the board, and he, if he could move up the board, he really helped himself today.
You say 6'5", 260?
And a 4.49.
Oh, my goodness.
He was hauling.
Yeah. The thing about him this year is his production was a little down, and everybody thought, because Drew Lock had left, maybe, that hurt his production. But the fact of the matter is, I know his tight end coach played with him when I was at Missouri, A.J. O'Fadley, and he just let me know, like, the kid was hurt all year, and he was trying to power through and play through some injuries, and it really kind of hurt him and hurt his draft stock a little bit. But now that he's healthy, he's in shape. He's been working down in Florida ever since the season has been over, and he told me he was going to run a great time, and he really did.
Now, because the Vikings don't really have a huge need there at tight end, I haven't looked much. Is he like projected as the top one or two tight ends in the draft then?
Yeah, he's definitely, and his performance today probably is going to solidify him as the top tight end on the board.
Does that mean first rounder? Second rounder?
I don't know because you don't. It's all about need as well, And there's not a lot of teams who need tight ends. So in that first round, and I think they'll be able to get good value with picking him a little later.
Yeah, and I would probably agree with what Byron said with the whole possibly not in the first round. This is just such a stacked draft, especially on offense, like he was saying with the wide receiver class, that in a lot of teams honestly need wide receivers just as much as they need tight ends. But he definitely is a good option at tight end, especially as your number one tight end with that speed. It seems like a lot of teams in the last couple of years have been drafting guys who are faster and big athletic guys who they can teach up and try and make better. So I could definitely see some teams taking advantage of him. We got our guy in Irv Smith Jr. last year, so.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm forgetting his first name, but Randy Moss's son was his first name. Thaddeus Moss. Now, I saw recently he didn't drop a single pass his this past year at LSU, and he should have a good combine too. And so I don't think the Vikings are going to draft a tight end in the top, three rounds, but that would be awesome to see Randy Moss's son in just a different color purple. But I don't know if they'll do it.
Well, we could talk. Yeah, that's down the road. So.
Oh yeah. Yep. So speaking of draft and stuff like that, today I decided that we're going to just talk about the whole offseason in one go. And I'm going to present to you guys what I would do, because I ran the cap simulator and mock draft on FanSpeak, and I used Matt Miller's big board and just the FanSpeak over the cap for the cap space. And I'm going to tell you who I cut, reconstructed, who's the free agent I signed, just starter changes, mock draft, the whole thing. And basically, I'm just looking for your guys' opinion. Tell me what you think. Don't hold back. If you agree with it, great. If you don't, tell me. So I'm going to just dive right into it then. And, starting off free agency, we knew before Everson voided his contract that they were, negative $12 million. That's correct, right?
Yep.
They were negative $12 million. Then Everson voided his. That freed up 13, so I didn't even have to cut him. But then I looked at who else there was, and I cut Linval, saving $10 million. I cut Xavier, saving $8 million. Shamar Stephen, $5 million, and Pat Elflein, saving $3 million. So I freed up a bunch of money right there, and with everything added up, I had $32 million cap space to play with because I reconstructed Diggs and Daniil. And doing that, I saved $5 million apiece for those two on the 2020 season. So that their cap hits went from 14 to 9.
Do you think, not to cut in here, do you
No,
think that Diggs would be willing to restructure that contract since it's already a team-friendly contract in the first place?
It's not his choice. If a team wants to reconstruct a deal, they can do it. That's part of the contracts. So that's why I think. Is that correct, Byron? Do you know? I've heard that, and I think it's correct.
No, I don't think that's correct. I think if they wanted to, they'd come to him first, and they're going to ask him, "Hey, we'd like to restructure your deal." Player's going to say, "Hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's try to do that," or he's going to say no, and which could either lead to them cutting the player, letting him go, or whatever. But they're not just going to restructure your contract without the player's approval. But the players, and going to that, and you said I was looking at the list of names that you said you cut, you let go. Xavier Rhodes, I think he's a guy that you would go to. I wouldn't want to just cut him. I think he still has some good football in him, although he didn't have the greatest season last year. But he's a guy that I think you could restructure a contract with, and maybe even put a lot of incentives bases in that contract for performance. Because I still think he has some good football in him. I just think, he didn't have the greatest of year last year.
Yep, I'm with it.
And I like the idea of keeping Xavier Rhodes just because of the player he's been for us and the player that he possibly could be. But I've also contemplated with him as a player and his contract. He's a very strong. He's a very strong player, and he when it comes to his mental, he very much wants to be the best out there on the field. And if it were to be something that he wasn't willing to necessarily restructure his contract, because I think with a restructure of his contract, I feel like maybe we would have a different role in the defense for him possibly. But me and Tyler were talking about this earlier in the week, and his $8 million, depending on what we do with the rest of our team, that could be saved up enough to be able to maybe sign a major cornerback in free agency this year. And that would be the only other reason that I would be okay with getting rid of him, is if we were going to be going towards the free agency route for a top tier corner. Otherwise, I think that Xavier Rhodes would be your next best option because his potential is still always there.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because about paying a top tier corner, because as I cleared up cap space, and I cut Rhodes for a reason, because I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to go out and get a number one corner, an undoubted number one. So I'm going to swap a star for a star, more or less, a younger one. And so
what
guy
do you have in mind for that position?
So in this simulation, I offered Byron Jones a 4-year deal with around 17 a year, with a cap hit of 11.9, and he accepted it. So Byron Jones is the one I went after and allocated the most money to. I think he'd be perfect, especially with Zimmer.
And I like that. I like that idea. He's definitely a stud. And I'm kind of sitting here thinking about it as we're talking through it, and everything that we could do. And the only thing that would make me go away from that and doing that would be the fact of who the Vikings are and their identity under Zimmer. It kind of seems, and I actually brought this point up a week or two ago in one of our podcasts when we were talking, and I was talking about getting a top tier corner, and we tend to stick to paying our our defensive line and our pass rushers more than we allocate money to our corners and our defensive backfield than we have in the past. So if it was just going by trend, then I would say that would be something we would do. The corners seem to be pretty deep as well in the draft. So if we were okay with just having a little bit better season than last year from Xavier Rhodes, and then taking the younger guys and developing this year, I could see that happening too.
What do you think about that, Byron? I went and got a fellow Byron.
Yeah, you did. The thing about it is he's the top corner on the market. He's definitely a number one guy. So if you can get that done, I'm not going to argue it with you. But also, I agree with what Austin said. There's traditionally we don't pay corners. We pay guys up front. And so if I could find maybe looking at the number 2 or number 3 guy on the board, and like I said, restructuring Xavier Rhodes, because I just still like him. I still like you said, what he could be, just not at the number, at the number he's at right now.
Right.
And then bringing in a guy. He doesn't have to be the top guy on the board, and maybe paying a little less for a solid corner, for another solid corner. I think maybe we got something in that scenario.
Yep, and my plan there, I signed Byron Jones, and then I had to pick between Trey Waynes and Mac Alexander. And I decided that Mac Alexander was the choice because if you want to look at the depth of the corner position now, there's a lot of outside corners, but not a lot of nickels. So I signed Mac Alexander to keep him at the nickel, and then you just make Mike Hughes the CB2 with Byron Jones starting.
I like that move. I like that move over Trey. And because of the versatility that you just spoke of.
And I think Mike Hughes, with coming into this season fully healthy, he's going to surprise people. They're going to remember why they took him when they did. So I'm excited to see him this year. Next in the list, since there's some rumors going around, Zimmer said he expects Griffin to be back, but Zimmer and Spielman are like the kings of smoke screens. So you never know what to believe this time of year. So I had to go out and get someone to start at right end since he's gone. And there's some premier people as edge rushers like Yannick Ngakoue and Eric Armstead, but I paid a corner, so I don't have the money for that. So I went out and I signed Shaq Lawson as the starting right end. Got him for a cap hit of $4.8 million, 3-year deal. And he's kind of like when they signed Linval coming off his rookie deal, just getting into his prime, same deal there. And I think the Vikings and Patterson could get more out of him than anyone else did. So I actually think that'd be a pretty solid duo with Hunter and Lawson if that were to happen.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I honestly hadn't even put him kind of on my radar to be somebody to acquire in the offseason. But especially at that number, I don't know if that, the numbers might be not fully realistic, but if it was at that number,
it was $7 million a year, but the cap hit was 4.8.
Okay. Yeah, then I mean, either way, that just to have a second premier rusher on the other side from Daniil would be awesome.
Yep, right.
But is he a premier rusher?
I don't think he's a premier rusher.
Is he a guy that is ever going to reach his potential, or the the hope that people had for him. I don't know.
See, and if it,
I like Eric Armstead. I think he's a baller.
Do you think he'll be too
Me
expensive?
too.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what number that came across in your simulator, but if there's a way to get a guy like that, and I like guys who have that playoff experience, that Super Bowl experience. It's just something about guys that understand what it takes to get to that level. It's invaluable. So I like Armstead.
Now, do you like Armstead going for someone younger like that that's a little more expensive than bringing back Griffin at a cheaper deal?
Yes, I do.
I'm with you there.
I think because I think the upside to a guy like that, like I said, with the experience, the Super Bowl experience, and the youth, I think he's going to bring. The upside is good. It's really good.
Yeah, and if we can manage to get Eric Armstead for a long time and sign him, we have Danielle Hunter for several years to come. That would be a crazy tandem on the defensive line for the NFC North to have to deal with for a couple years.
I mean, he's a guy who's long. He's a guy that can run, and he can get after the quarterback. And I think too, playing indoors makes those pass rushers that much more effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see him play, indoors, in Minneapolis and see what kind of damage he could do.
And his stature, he's like the one person on the D line that would make Danielle Hunter look normal. They're like the same size. That'd be an intimidating pass rushing duo to go against. But next, so since I gave so much money to a corner, I had to make a decision that, and I based this off Zimmer's comments about Anthony Harris, that you're great. Hopefully we got you paid more, but you're not going to get paid from us, is what it seems like Zimmer said. And so I had to decide to let him walk. So I offered a corner that I really liked coming into the draft a few years ago. He just never caught on in Oakland. I signed Carl Joseph to be the strong safety, or not the strong safety, the free safety next to Harry. And I got him for relatively cheap. And I feel like he's someone that could be versatile enough to go to the line of scrimmage, then play deep if he needs to, that if they're going to get anyone, cheap that's not Jaron Curse, that he'd be someone on their radar.
Yeah, and I like him as an option. He's still young and still has potential. He also does kind of remind me a little bit of the Shaq Lawson. Not obviously not the same position, but just with how much time they've been in the league and where their full potential really is.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, that's where you would kind of be cutting yourself short, would be at that position because of where the money is being allocated. Other than that, so if that's where we're cutting down, which we tend to do, like we were saying with the defensive backs, then that would be fine with me too. Still young, still has potential. So
he's a hard hitter.
What was the number?
It was a $5 million a year, and I kind of front loaded it. So where this year was a $3.7 million cap hit.
Yeah.
I thought that was reasonable.
Yeah, in that scenario, I agree with that. And you can always, see what you get out of him. And how many years was the deal?
3 years.
3 years?
Yep. It was 3 years, $15 million, $9 million guaranteed.
So
at that price, I'm definitely not mad at you for that move. We'll see what happens.
And we would have him until he was 29, so that would be before he's kind of getting over that hump too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and the last notable one was like I said earlier, I cut Pat Elflein just because I don't think it's not possible to have him start at left guard again. So there was a cheap-ish starter that kind of like the Josh Klein signing last year, Quentin Spain, the guard, Buffalo. and he's a free agent. Doesn't look like they're going to bring him back. Got him for a 3-year deal with a $3 million cap hit, and I think he'd be the same quality as Klein, which is an upgrade above Elflein. And that would kind of shore up the interior.
Do you think we would do that for a short term and then draft that position? Or
yeah, it was only a 2-year deal
that
I signed him to, so it was kind of my idea was build that through the draft, or like Drew Samia or someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be positions like we have a lot of spots that we can fix and upgrade, and so there's going to be positions this year where we're going to have good average players, or we're going to have to find a way to just do it with good average players at those positions.
Mm-hmm.
And we've shown that we can do that with our offensive line and still have a top tier passing and rushing game. So,
Yep, I'm with it. And I had some the last two there. They're notable, but they're not expensive or anything. Is I re-signed Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt. I felt like that was like no brainer. They were both solid, both $1.5 million, no brainer.
Yeah, with what the issues that we've had in the past with consistency, and how well those guys have done over the past year, I'm totally okay with that too.
Okay, that's kind of where the cap part of it is finished. So you heard the bigger names, the couple small names. You couldn't go out and sign too many people. So right after that, I just went right into the draft. And me going into the draft this is totally my opinion and what I would like to do. Not everyone listening would agree with it, but that's the beauty of it. I just want people to see what I think my vision of the offense and the defense is going forward. So with the 25th pick, I don't even know if he'll slip this far, but in this draft simulator he did. I took Jordan Love, the quarterback, Utah State. And then with this new wave of quarterbacks, the mobility, the off-script plays, I think he'd be perfect. And that's like the only way perfect to sit, behind Kirk for a year. I think he needs a year, just like the Chiefs did with Mahomes and Alex Smith. I think that'd be ideal to me.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple people mock him up going to us. I've seen him mocked towards the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him mocked in the second round. It's early in the process. Obviously, once we get through all of the combine here, we'll be able to see where people kind of feel that he's actually going to be going, because there's so many quarterbacks and they're all so close in what we think right now, in ability wise. So we'll have to see as we go. And I honestly haven't seen a very consistent mock draft or like individual player being mocked to the Vikings. There's just so many different positions that we can go to. And that's what's cool. And that's why you saying your opinion is just as valid as any other person's opinion at this point, because no one seems to have a clue what we're going to do exactly. So.
All right, I'm going to move on to the second pick that I had in the draft. And this is, so I'm a Hawkeye fan at heart. And in the bowl game this year, I saw a player on the other team kind of tearing it up to where I was like, who is this? And I ended up taking him. And I took Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver from USC.
Okay.
He's 6'4", 220, but he has the quick twitch of a slot, a quick slot receiver.
Right. And that's definitely a player I think Byron would enjoy having on the team.
I know he was a third receiver.
He's a USC guy. I know his dad. His dad grew up in San Diego with a lot of us that played, and so I think it's a great pick. I would love to see, I would love that pick. We with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with Diggs. Is he going to be there? Are they going to ask him to restructure his contract? Is he trade bait for us? There's a lot of possible scenarios. So having him, and even if we did keep Diggs, I think I'm looking at the champs. I'm looking at KC. And if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, the amount of weapons they have offensively is ridiculous. And I think that's going to be the trend in the NFL, like stockpile receivers, stockpile tight ends who can get down the field and make plays, stockpile running backs who can catch the ball out of the backfield, not only run it, but catch it out of the backfield and make big plays. That's what the Chiefs have. And so I'm not mad at that pick. Going back to the first pick with Love, I wasn't expecting that, but I'll say this. I would love to see Love picked and being able to sit on the bench and be able to learn. I think nowadays that's the best possible situation that you can put quarterbacks in. You look at, like you said, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, these guys that they don't have that expectation the first year or the first couple of years, and then they get in there. They're hungry and they're ready to go, and they've seen the game and they learned the game without taking the lumps and bumps. So I think those first two picks, I'm giving you a thumbs up on both of them.
Sweet. And now, being in the Midwest, I didn't get a whole lot of USC games on TV. Now, a reason I drafted him on this is because from just the few games I saw, it looks like he was just as versatile as like Diggs and Thielen, to where all three of them could rotate from slot to outside to either side of the field. So that's why when he was there, it was kind of like this. Okay, this is a no-brainer to take him. But moving on to the third round pick, after going with the offense, the first two, I figured, there's some needs I should probably address. So I took Rashard Lawrence, interior defensive lineman from LSU. He's like the build of a nose tackle, but can pass rush like a 3 technique. And so I think he's someone that Patterson and Zimmer could mold to develop just like they've always developed defensive linemen. He's 6'5", 300 pounds, the ideal nose tackle size.
I was going to say he's an athletic freak.
Yeah.
He definitely fits the mold of being able to jump into a Vikings defense and get trained up by Zimmer to get the job done.
And he's already used to wearing purple and yellow. So,
yep.
I
love when that happens.
It's perfect. And okay, so that after going in the trenches on one side of the football, I just decided in the fourth to come back and get Logan Stenberg. He's a guard from Kentucky, and he fits what a Kubiak guard would be to me. He's also 6'5" in that 315-pound range, but he can move, and he's known for his strength and his initial punch inside, knocking defensive linemen off their initial step. And so that's what they need. That's like exactly what Pat Elflein does not do. Have you gotten to see any film on him yet, either of you two?
I was going to say I saw some stuff about him, just looking at pre-combine stuff today and yesterday, but I didn't get to watch him during the season. It definitely seems like somebody that wouldn't make an immediate impact on the team. But like I said, our team
who could sit behind like Spain or something, and
we have a good team when it comes to teaching up younger guys. I feel like we have a very strong like captain presence in our locker room. So he from what I've seen, he looks like he would be a good option, especially at that point in the draft.
Yep, and in this simulator, there's trades offered to you, and I was offered 2/4 I ended up with 3 4th-round picks because I was offered 2 picks for the first 4th rounder. So I ended up trading back. And so I have 2 more 4th rounders. And after taking a guard, took Trey Adams, the offensive tackle, Washington. He's 6'8".
Yep.
Huge dude. Like kind of your project tackle just because they're a freak. And if they get everything right, then you got to steal in the 4th round.
Right.
He's kind of a popular name. As
could be like an Andreas Pete, but that one didn't turn out as well. Unfortunately, that would be the only bad thing. You're just testing it with that. But when it comes to having that many picks in the 4th round, you like his physicality and his ability and potential, then yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like you said, with that many picks in the 4th round, you're just trying to help you hit on something, some gem out there that could possibly step in and that you weren't expecting and be a starter or be a significant contributor to your team. So,
and with the last 4th rounder, I had to draft my boy out of Arizona State, Eno Benjamin, because he was still there. And I'll take a running back of his talent. You can never have too many right now, especially when running backs are kind of considered a dime a dozen. And Eno would fit perfectly as the 3rd running back behind Madison and Cook. And I think he'd win that battle with like Boone and Abdullah. But Abdullah's a special teamer, so I don't know. That's important, so I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, and I guess I just don't know where the team is with Abdullah. It kind of seems like we jump around for that 3rd running back spot all the time, year to year. But he would be a great 3rd option. He's got the star power, the potential's there. Since he was a young athlete, I think he was always kind of ahead of the game. So that'd be awesome.
Let me ask you this: Does he play on special teams, and can he contribute on special teams?
That and at Arizona State, he didn't play on special teams
at all.
I mean, because realistically, that's where your 3rd running back is going to be, and that's where he's going to contribute. Like Dalvin is the man.
Yep, no doubt.
And so, if you can't contribute on special teams, what are we going to hold a roster spot just so you can sit there? Because you're not holding a clipboard like the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to contribute on special teams, and if he can do that, then I think there's a place for him, especially early. If not, then I don't know if we would need to waste that pick.
Yeah, I get you.
And not necessarily having to do with this pick, but with that being said, then Byron, do you think we lock up Dalvin for a long time, like 100%?
I do. I believe in the kid. I think his injuries are past him. I think to me, he's top 3 running backs in the league, and not necessarily to say he's 2 or whatever, but you can. I'll take Dalvin over most guys in this league. There's only a couple of guys that if you think about making a trade for, that you would trade Dalvin for.
And the only thing that, or like you said, the only thing that would stop you from even doing that would be the injuries thing. That would be literally the only thing. Okay, question for both of you guys then. Alexander Madison, is he our number 2? Like, is he going to be the guy for a while?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so too.
I like him a lot.
I don't think this isn't a knock to Dalvin. This is just a compliment to Madison that when Dalvin was out, there wasn't that much of a drop off.
Yeah, I think he definitely proved himself. I think he definitely shown his ability, and I think he, like you said, he's better than a lot of people gave him credit for coming into this year. And he performed. I like his running style. I think it's very similar to Dalvin's. I think it definitely fits in Kubiak's offense. He's a kid that he's going to stick his foot in the ground and get north and south. So and they love that. Kubiak and
that one cut and go.
Yeah, Rick Dennison and Brian Periani, who's coaching the tight ends, they love that type of runner, and so he definitely fits. So I think he's definitely a solid number 2.
See, I think his running style reminds me of Alvin Kamara. Like, I'm not saying he's the star that Kamara is, but how he looks when he runs, their body contorts the same way. Yeah, it's impressive.
Which that's fair because Dalvin, I mean, honestly, like he was saying, he runs a lot like Dalvin, and Dalvin's just faster. That's gonna be the main difference between him and Madison is that quickness. So,
how much does Madison weigh?
I believe he's 230.
230.
He's a little heavier.
Solid.
Yeah.
That's tough to bring down.
Yeah,
Latavius Murray type.
Yep. So that was my last 4th round pick. I only had 3 of them. So for the 5th, I got a 5th round pick out of the deal because I don't believe the Vikings. No, the Vikings don't have a 6th round pick. So in the 5th round, I drafted Michael Ojemudia, the cornerback from Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get one Hawkeye in this draft. And the Vikings, they're other than the three corners I have in this scenario of Byron Jones, Mack, and Hughes. You got like Holton Hill and Chris Boyd, and maybe Marcus Sherrills and Ojemudia. He's kind of like Josh Jackson from the Hawkeyes a few years ago, and he's good at man coverage. They played a lot of cover 3, which Zimmer likes to do, and Kirk Ferentz, that old school defense. They kind of rotated between a cover 3 Tampa 2 look, and that's the basic of what Zimmer will do. So I think he'd fit with them, and he'd be a good project for a year or two. I don't think hopefully he wouldn't see the field right away.
And like Byron was saying, with the later round picks, you're kind of hoping to get that gem in the draft. Iowa corners are pretty consistently solid when it comes to playing in the NFL. So if it was something that he just needed a little bit teaching and ended up turning out pretty solid, definitely a good pick.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can't go wrong with the Hawks. And I'm going to finish up with the last one I went for was since there was just Harrison Smith and Carl Joseph as safeties right now. I drafted Rodney Clemens, safety from SMU. He's a bigger body. He's 6'2", 190. I figure, a bigger frame like that, someone Zimmer likes to have, like almost your Jaron Curse replacement, since I didn't re-sign him in this one. So that was kind of my last swing for the fences for talent at the end of the draft. And
I like it. It addresses a need, so I'm not problem with that pick.
And after that, I don't. The Vikings did all this. They have a few starter changes this draft. They ended up with being like positive $4 million cap space. So the starter changes would be left guard. We're swapping Pat Elflein for Quentin Spain. I think that's an upgrade. At right end, instead of Everson Griffin, we got Shaq Lawson. You can kind of determine that yourself if that's an upgrade with Patterson. Byron's giving me a thumbs down right now. At corner, instead of Xavier Rhodes, it'd be Byron Jones and Mike Hughes. So
that's an upgrade.
We got thumbs up all around right there.
Absolutely.
At safety for Anthony Harris, it'd be Carl Joseph, and I mean that might not be a thumbs up, but it's hard to pay.
That's right here.
Yeah,
that's a we'll see.
Yeah, and then I know the last one you'll like. The wide receiver 3 change is Michael Pittman Jr.
Yes.
So the wide receiver depth chart would be Diggs, Thielen, Pittman Jr., Chad Beebe, and BC Johnson, and I think that's what they'd roll with.
I'm okay with that. Does Treadwell?
I figured with Beebe, if Beebe's back, they'll take him over Treadwell because he was like the wide receiver 3 to start the season.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely down for that.
And then BC.
Can we trade Treadwell? Can we get something for him?
We can never get that first rounder back. That's for sure.
Can we get something?
See, now on the bright side, if Anthony Harris goes and signs this mega deal, the Vikings get a third rounder. And if Everson Griffin signs, well, actually, I don't know, because Everson voided his deal. I don't know if they'd get a compensatory pick.
I don't think so. I think it would just be straight up at that point.
Yeah, probably. And then there's one person, I talked about Hunter and Lawson a lot. But in this case, I think that someone that, Byron, you might agree with this, that could end up outplaying Shaq Lawson is Ifeadi Odenigbo. Because when Griffin was out this year a little bit, they played him over Weatherly.
Yeah, and, the only thing about that is, I guess, is he knows the system. He's been in the system. He knows the terminology. He's not going to have that learning curve. But if you're gonna go get Shaq Lawson, you're gonna play Shaq Lawson. So.
Mm-hmm. The only place I'm lacking in this is D tackle. Is right in this scenario, it'd be the rookie Rashard Lawrence starting at one technique, and then you kind of have to pick between Armon Watts, Jaleel Johnson, all those guys who'd rotate at 3 technique. and I'm not really sure who it'd be. It's just kind of a toss-up at this point if this were to happen.
Right, and I mean that's this perfect model that you have for yourself. Who knows? We could do pretty much most of what you said, but switch one up here or there, and switch a player up here and there, and maybe we end up drafting an interior defensive lineman or something.
And I'll note it. This is what I would love to do. If I was playing Madden, doing a team, this is what I would do. Do I think they'll do any of this? Like maybe 5% of it. So maybe they'll draft Michael Pittman.
Listen,
but
if they do this exactly what you did, you should apply for the general manager's job for the Vikings.
You better believe I will. I've been playing Madden for years, building teams. I'm ready for this.
And I'll come on board as your assistant.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you were right here with me. All right, so we are going to wrap this up here, and coming up either next week or the week after, we're going to have Jordan Reed on, who's at the Combine right now covering. I talked to him last week, and he said he's busy this week, obviously, because he's at the Combine. He doesn't have time to just hop on a call with us, but he'll have a lot of information to pass on to us. And I know I'm going to have plenty of questions and people to ask him about and pick his brain on all this. So you guys can do the same. And after that, after the Combine's all wrapped up, we also are going to get in touch with Eno Benjamin and get him on here. So lots of good stuff coming up. Byron, it's good to have you back on the show. It's good to see you.
Good to be back.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Skol.
All right, man.
Skol.
Go.